And we're back, part 2. So, finishing my thought, Miranda's, that really crunchy, odd looking wig that she has, and I get it. They wanted to use it because it goes perfectly with the storyline about her going gray. But again, like I said, they could have used those small like tints, and that would have been fine. And her actually using her natural hair. So I don't know what the whole thing with the wig was, but the wig I think is the fourth missing, the missing gal here. We don't have Samantha, but we have the wig. But it's funny because when she's around Che, she wants to make it look a little more youthful, so she does like these little curls or bedhead kind of thing. But when she's with Carrie or she's with Steve, it's just like, flat iron thing. And it's not appealing. Again, I don't know what they were thinking. A lot of the fashion has really gone by the wayside. A lot of people have said that because Patricia Field is not part of this. And again, that's no shade to the stylist, but because some of the actors on the show are making their own decisions. They're now executive producers or directing certain episodes. So Patricia even threw shade. She said particularly Cynthia Nixon, thinks that she knows what she's doing when it comes to her fashion. And as you can see, it's like either frump or this or whatever. But again, God bless them. The show, at least this season, is almost over, and we're almost kind of like, can we get to it already? And this is what I think is odd about this choice to come back, because perhaps everybody was kind of begging for a third movie or a follow-up. We want to know where our gals are. But in doing so, have they really done it justice? And this is the weird part, because they were the first to kind of set the trend, I guess, of going out with a bang. They I think what they finished Sex and the City after the 6th season, and then people were like, no, why, whatever, and somehow they did finish it on a good note. We didn't suffer great loss with the end of the series with season 6, and then they were able to branch out into movies and it become a lucrative business soon after the show wrapped. And if anything, I think it set the trend. Now, Insecure, after 5 seasons, and you leave on a high note, is my point. They left on a very high note, and people were kind of left no, you can't do that. What are we going to do? What are we going to watch now? So you want to leave on a high note. But why leave on a high note and then do this? Because it's just been dragging itself. Again, I really didn't want to go there with the judgment, the harsh critiques, because I'm a big Sex and the City fan. And did I necessarily relate with these women? Parts, certain elements, sure. Other parts I felt were a little more fantasy based. I really didn't feel like that was my New York, but it was somebody's New York. And so, but I still can enjoy it for the story that it is. And there are elements of Cinderella. Carrie has always been very much our Cinderella. And not for nothing, when you can do the comparisons between the Golden Girls and Sex and the City, we see that Carrie is Dorothy. Not only in the sense that she's the character that gets married, but also because, yes, she is, just as important. But what we're seeing with this, and just like that all 4 ladies are very necessary. And even though Dorothy was the major role, she was just an element. Because the reason why I say is because when the Golden Girls transitioned into the Golden Palace, which was the series that followed the Golden Girls, because the author didn't want to be a part of it anymore, they also ended up on a high note. So they were the original, OG gang that decided to go off on a high note. And then Sex and the City, because again, they have in common Darren Star, who was the one of the showrunners and executive producers for the Golden Girls that would transition to Sex and the City before Michael King took over. So there were those elements. But we're seeing here that, like I said, I mentioned in the other video, Samantha's role is just as important. It's like taking out Blanche. I can't imagine what the Golden Girls would have been like if you would have taken out Blanche. You know? So Samantha is Blanche. Anywho, so we see Miranda's character, oogling Shay from the stage. Excuse me. And because it's an openly free, very transgender, a very LGBTQ, transgender, open rally, we see that she was there, perhaps because now she can relate to the community, but then realizes that there's a section for the allies, and she sees her son, and she didn't feel comfortable with her son seeing her there. And that in itself, a lot of people have brought this up. This is a good time to bring this up. Now, this is one page I will recommend, and I'll link it down below. I started hearing their podcast, which also has a YouTube channel here on YouTube. And though I love y'all tuning in to my reviews, but just in case you want a little bit more tea, a little bit more of roasting of, and just like that, my recommendation is to type in Drag Dungeon Podcast. And these two commentators are the funniest because they're already taking the elements that we know where they've gone really bad with this particular show, but they do roasting well. I will recommend them because I'm sorry, there's a number of other YouTubers that are just hacking into this particular show, and they're just doing a pitiful job. So it's like the show's bad and then you're a bad reviewer. It's like, no. If you're gonna roast well. And these two in particular do justice. And somebody brought up a good point on that podcast because, a lot of people are getting offended. Some people, hardcore fans of Sex and the City, feel that people are kind of being really rotten to the three remaining characters, the three remaining actresses. And, have made these comparisons that why are they ragging so much on them? Is because of their age? Is it this or that? And on this particular page, somebody left in the comments like, well, did you really do your research? Which is such a catty comment, honestly. I think, honestly, you shouldn't do that on anybody's page unless there's genuinely something to question. But, one of the podcasters brought up a good point. It says, like, well, why do I need to do research? If I'm being entertained, I just want to be entertained with what is in front of me. Did I need to do research when I was watching and enjoying the Golden Girls? No. Perfect example, perfect analogy. And he was absolutely right in bringing that up. Because why should a person have to do so much research if it's just to enjoy what's in front of them? So that was a good point. And so I thought I'd bring them up, and I'm going to link them down below if you really want to have a great laugh. They have several episodes up, and I believe their roasting channel per episode is and just like crap. Sorry. I'm sorry to the actresses on the show. I think people are being rotten. But I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, the show just isn't being written. It wasn't written well. And I get it. Y'all made it at a time when you didn't know if, we were going to be able to have entertainment again. But something happened with the writing on this show. So episode 8 is Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. We already talked about Miranda. And I think the bothered part is the part where Carrie, now because she's a certain age, she can't, not that she can't stand her neighbors, but her neighbors are a little bit on the rude side. And again, it's not like we, technically you can say like, well, she's become that old crotchety old lady that now is like banging on the roof or, banging on the furnace and like you're telling people to be quiet because she needs to sleep. And I would say, yeah, that's part of life, especially in New York City. But then at the same time, I'm like, wasn't there an episode in Sex and the City where she couldn't sleep? She's always been like super bougie, super pampery kind of person. Remember when she had the roosters? They were constantly crowing across the street because there was like some like animal clinic, and she was bothered. So now she's bothered again, and but the way that they're connecting it, it's like, oh, because now she's like old and crotchety, and she's become one of those people like, get off my lawn, type stuff. So the comparison is a little bit on the and yeah, you see a group of 20, 30 somethings outside on the same stoop where she used to, be able to do her same shenanigans. Sure, driving up insane the neighbors, but we rarely saw them. And so now she's become them. And it was like 2 a.m. Somebody had a horrible cackle outside. I've been there. Girl, just call the cops. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's a Karen move, but I was like, if I need to sleep, hey. But she just like raises her window and is like, come on. And they're like, sorry, ma'am. And then she's like, oh, my cool card has been revoked. I think that's also why we see her library card towards the end, which again, that's also always a great nod of to New York City and to what she is as a writer, that she is always reading, constantly reading. They always say for writers it's great to always be reading because it jogs the memory and it helps with imagination. So there's a nice plug for the New York City Public Library. And Sarah, I got to give it to Sarah. I think that's her own input because I think she's a big reader. So we saw it in Sex and the City, the movie, the first one, when she was about to marry big. That also influenced her books, and then we see it again as she's returning her books. We see that her neighbor has issues. She's a mess, a little bit of a mess. New York City dating a young thing and somebody who's not super interested to be in a monogamous relationship. She, I don't know if that's an old thing. I don't think so. I think it's just a womanly, gossipy thing. Like, okay, what is going on here? Carrie's character is bothered again because here we have thumping at 4 in the morning, music, loud music, and she goes down this beautiful robe and tries to knock on her neighbor's door, who's on the first floor. Is the same person that's always on the stoop. And then she realizes that the girl's been passed out, but she has the music all the way up. She turns down the volume. She Googles her name and finds out that she's like a fashion accessory person and is well-to-do. But she has a crummy love life. Some guy that can't seem to keep it in his pants. So she tries to, she at least lowered the volume. She closed her door. And in another instance, she's having a fight with the neighbors, having the fight with the neighbor, with the hot guy that she's dating. She apologizes. And this is the one thing I will say that at least that just proves that not all 20-year-olds are thoughtless and callous. And she's mindful of her manners. She realizes that, they were out late and probably kept her up late. And so she does make the attempt to be nice to her and had apologized for the noise and went up there and apologized to Carrie. And then when she has the big outburst and fight with her boyfriend, she also apologizes. And she's like, it's fine, it's New York City dating. That's what Carrie tells her. And there's like some instance like where she's like coming full circle because that's how her life was in her 20s and her 30s. And then the neighbor is like, well, thank you for understanding. You're cool. And it's almost like she got her cool card back. Now, in Charlotte's case, we're also dealing with perhaps that, yes, I don't know why 55 is being equated to super old lady, but yes, she still has sex with her husband. She still has oral sex with her husband. And it's become like the taboo. Oh, boy, Charlotte, you doing what to Harry? Even Miranda's like taken for a loop. And it's like, lady, weren't you just doing the most in Carrie's kitchen with Che? So I don't know, whatever. So as she's like promoting this ring for Harry to be on top of his heart rate and whatnot, and it's also, mimics a wedding band. She's down there and putting it on his finger, and then he kind of asks for a little BJ, and then she didn't realize in the bathroom, like, come on, if you're gonna do that, close the damn door, knowing that you have teenagers. So Lily, her other daughter, almost walks in. She slammed the door in her face. They have a whole conversation. She didn't tell her specifically what she was doing, but because she kind of like tried to play it off that she was just testing for testicular cancer or whatever. Later to find out that her own daughter, even though she's fairly young, 15, is exploring her own sexuality and identity in the world. So there's an instance of that when Charlotte finds this other account that she's kept hidden from her mother. And it's a very sexy pose, and she's not having it. She's not happy with that. They have a big old argument. Carrie's involved. Carrie tries to be the neutral party here. And but this is the one thing I will say is that Carrie kind of tells her that I don't think she should, because at this point you don't have kids of your own. So I think certain parenting advice should be reserved, because if you don't know what it's like, how can you really relate that to another person? And then on top of all that, she's like, oh, but it's only clothes, Charlotte, and I was wearing way less when we used to be single. But I was like, you were 20 something, you weren't 15, so there was an issue there with that writing. There was an issue there. No body shaming, I'm not saying anything, but you can't police how parents are gonna bring up their kids, raise their kids. So there was a moment there. And then finally, Miranda, Che finds out that that Miranda hadn't told. She realized, she's like, why did you scour away while I was on there, talking, on the mic for the rally? And she's like, oh, my son was here and I didn't want him to know, and he doesn't know. And he's like, how does he not know? You haven't told him? No, why would I? I'm keeping all this secret and this is all new to me. And she's like, oh, so not even your husband, not even Steve knows? Aren't you in an open relationship? Now, to be honest though, before you even had done anything, you should have asked yourself if you were genuinely curious. And any point soon after your first hookup, you should have asked if Miranda was in an open marriage. And she never cop to that, because when you're just like hooking up, that's not the first thing that pops into your head, especially if you're in an unhappy relationship. So Che kind of scolds her like a little girl and tells her, like, get your stuff together because I'm not going to be a homewrecker, blah 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 blah, and walks away from her really nasty. And Miranda is like heartbroken, but then runs to Carrie, and Carrie kind of sets her straight, and she was like, I think I'm going to have to tell Steve because I love Che. I'm in love with Che. And she's like, well, how do you know if Che loves you or has those feelings? So now Miranda stalks Che, is waiting outside the radio station, tells her that she's going to be upfront with Steve about what's going on. And Che's like, I guess kind of like very nonchalant, but she's like, I need to know, do you feel those same feelings for me? Now here's the issue, because we're going to bleed this into the next episode. She's like, I'm in love with you. She says it right there in that episode, I'm in love with you. So that's her green light to like, okay, I'm going to destroy my marriage because I have an opportunity with Che. So she has this horrible conversation. She's really nasty and rude to poor Steve. Poor Steve can't hear. He needs 2 hearing aids. I don't know why they've done this to poor Steve's character. She basically tells him, is this enough? Is it, because I want more. More of what? Doesn't give specifics. I need more. I need more sex, more this, and that. And he's kind of like, are you fine with this? And he's like, yeah. But if you want me to be honest, you've always pulled these stunts. You've always had to, like, in the back of your mind, I'm never good enough for you. And I'm tired of rallying for us. And I kind of feel for him, even with his infidelity. So I don't know. And everybody online is like, justice for Steve. You done messed this up. This was not the way to handle this. Maybe even try. Like, she didn't even try. They didn't even try, like, let's go to couples therapy. I think they had, but like with an emphasis maybe more on sex therapy. You could have tried anything, girl. You just want to snip this shit because you're infatuated with Che. So in the upcoming highlights for the next episode, it seems like, oh, and not to mention that soon after that, she wraps it up, gets in a cab. She's like, I'm in a rom-com, Carrie. And I was like, that is so fucked up, because you just totally broke this man's heart. And then you picked up your stuff like, ding dong, the witch is dead. I'm going to go run after Che's butt. And And we see in like the highlight for next episode, she's not too enthused to see her there, and she tells her like, "You're not my girlfriend." So, again, at the very beginning of this whole blowout that she had with Che, she's like, "You're not in an open marriage." Right there is kind of key, and even like the other YouTube channel I suggested, the Drag Dungeon podcast, makes comments of that. Like, yeah, she did ask if you were in an open marriage, which translates to, I'm down to have a hookup with you every now and then, but you are still committed to somebody else. So that means that I don't need to be 100% committed to you. And she's kind of like dumbfounded, which again, we don't understand why she's behaving this way. Maybe she is bored with her life. Maybe at the end of the day, at the end of this season, hopefully series, that she will be better off by herself. I don't know. Maybe she'll date somebody else. But I still think that she could have worked it out with Steve. But whatever. That's the wrap up for these 2 episodes. I'm enjoying Seema. I think Seema needs more airtime. If she has the potential to maybe be like Samantha, but not an exact copy of her. But if we want to see more or want to genuinely enjoy this show, the writers have to step it up when it comes to the writing, and perhaps talk more about these characters than per se these 3 ladies, because now they've become like 3 nags. Without Samantha, they're just like nags. So with that, y'all, tune into my next episode, my next review, and let's play this out. If you like what you see, give us a like, leave us a comment down below. If you like my videos, hit the subscription button and notification button to stay tuned of my next upload. So till next time, y'all. XOXO, Nerdy Girl. This is Big Frida, Chasing Rainbows featuring Kesha. They do have good songs, though. I'll say that. They have a good selection of songs. Stay tuned, y'all. XOXO, Nerdygirl.